Season 3 of The Witcher is a fascinating and unique viewing experience. It's not often that your favorite aspect of a show, the only real reason that you love the series itself, hates the series. Hates it so much, in fact, that it wants to leave. And not only wants to, but has left the series. It creates a very odd taste in your mouth as you're watching the show, knowing that they don't like being there, and they don't really want to be there anymore, and yet you're trying to enjoy it, and you're trying to see past the fact that the most charming, sexy, charismatic, awesome man to ever live doesn't like this anymore, and so you keep being like, I don't know if I want to like it, but don't worry, I am a professional. Well, I'm not a professional, but let's pretend for a second that I am a professional. I completely threw all of that Henry Cavill behind the scenes mess out of my mind, and I watched The Witcher Season 3 Part 1 for what it is. And what is it? It's a season of TV that I saw. Well, it's 5 episodes of a season of TV. It definitely doesn't feel complete. It just ends and goes, tune in 2 seconds time for the next episode. But the next episode just like, it isn't there because they split it. They did a Stranger Things, but they forgot to like have an ending that felt like, you know, satisfying. So you're like, oh yes, that arc of episodes, I feel complete and satisfied. Instead of being like, where's the next one, Netflix? If we're not doing week to week, the end of a part has to have something. It can't just... Hey guys, I'm Jax, and this is my spoiler-free review for The Witcher Season 3, Part 1. Now, just to be clear, I haven't played any of the Witcher games, I haven't read any of the Witcher books, so in terms of like lore and staying true to the source material and all that kind of stuff, I have no idea, so if you're wanting to just kind of find out about that, sorry, not the video for you. This review is just coming from a simple man who wants to watch Henry Cavill fight giant monsters with a giant sword and stab them in the face. And oh boy, did we get that. Some of the time, and not as often as I would like, if I'm being completely honest. After the Witcher franchise dealt us a 1-2 punch last season with Henry Cavill leaving and then the atrocious spin-off Blood Origin, Season 3 really had to lift its game and show that it can be a series that we love without the aspects of the show that we love. And I do not think it really succeeds in that. The series isn't bad by any stretch, I had a lot of fun with it, but all the other aspects of this season, which kind of feel a bit bloated and overloaded at times, do not work and succeed the same way the scenes with Henry Cavill as Geralt do. He still carries this series, even though the series kind of moves away from him, almost like they knew that he can't be the big main thing. But I don't think that's the case. I think he decided to leave as this season was happening. So I don't think they wrote it this way. And maybe it's just because that's where my brain is at, constantly looking at the series, being like, why does he hate it? Is it this bit? Is it this bit? I felt like I was a little detective trying to figure it out. Not a little detective, sorry. A big, tall, masculine, manly detective. There are scenes with him fighting monsters, and he's got the red eyes, and he's taking potions, and he's stabbing disgusting, crazy, visually interesting monsters. And that is all great. He delivers a fantastic performance as always. He's definitely not phoning it in, which I think some people might be worried about because like he doesn't want to be there anymore. You cannot tell at all. He's really, really great. But the entire season shifts focus. And season 2 it's starting to do this, but season 3 kind of dives fully into that, and that is political intrigue. Unfortunately, the political intrigue is not intriguing. Season 1 really felt like an episodic Xena warrior princess, but with a higher budget, in the best way. I love that aspect of it, and it always had like underneath it all little hints and like things and whispers and murmurs of a series that was going to get grander and epicer and have this kind of larger than life epic grand story to tell in the future. And now we're here telling that story, I find myself not as interested anymore and kind of wishing it felt more episodic like it used to. This season really feels like Game of Thrones light. Budget Game of Thrones. We have a lot of characters that are doing their best to imitate Littlefinger and Varys, and they, you know, they say words and they do things, and it's mildly interesting. Like, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but none of it is compelling and enthralling. When a big reveal or revelation happens, you're not like jumping out of your seat in shock and horror at this atrocious thing this character has done, or this big reveal that this character is actually doing this. It's all just like, Okay, alright, like, I don't know, none of the characters have the weight and gravitas that they kind of feel like they need to have. The season is quite bloated, so no one really gets that much material. It's a really odd, contradictory feeling of a lot of stuff is going on, yet it feels like nothing is actually happening. But don't worry, if the political intrigue isn't intriguing you, there are fights and action and monsters! Not as many monsters as you would probably hope, and probably not as much action as you would hope, but the action is there. Is the action any good? Mixed. It is very, very stylized, and The Witcher has always been quite stylized in its approach to action, but it's always kind of still had that kind of guttural punch and emotional weight to it, where if Geralt chops someone's neck off or chops an arm off, you feel that and you're like, oh my god, that's bloody and intense and gruesome and brutal. Now the stylized nature of it has kind of gone a bit too far, and every single time there is someone who's been chopped down, the blood that explodes out of them is not realistic in the slightest. It looks like it's from 300. The stylized blood is so obvious, so disgustingly clearly visual effects, and it just stands out like a sore thumb, and it completely takes you away from the realism that the show is trying to go for. Despite it being a fantasy series with monsters, it's still trying to have that gritty realism that a Vikings or a Game of Thrones has. It just doesn't really work though, because every single time there is violence, the gore is so obviously CGI heavy, and it just does not fit the vibe of the show at all, and it makes every single action set piece fall flat. The one saving grace for this season for me is the monsters. The monsters are inventive and interesting and visually stunning on just like a design level. Some of the CGI is a little hit or miss. Some shots look better than others, but just conceptually, oh my lord, so amazing. There is one fight where Geralt fights this, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like this crazy thing that looks like it's from an 80s horror B-grade thing. Like it almost looks like The Thing at times. It is so crazy and visually interesting. Love, love, love that. All the monster fights are pretty damn good. I still do think the show is finding a little bit hard to kind of convey a big CGI monster fighting live action people for the staging and the blocking. Like sometimes it'll move and it like at one point a monster moves and it looks like it crushes Ciri, but then suddenly she's just like on the other side of the monster. And I'm like, oh, okay, you did not do that properly. But for the most part, it's really, really fun and exciting, and definitely the highlight of the season. Oh, also, I guess I should talk about Yennefer and Ciri. They're good, they're fine, I don't know. The plot of this season is all about Ciri, and Ciri's got some kind of magical powers or whatever, and everyone's gonna get their hands on Ciri, and she's trying to grow and be a better magic person or whatever. And it's all building to something, like it's all building. It's like, oh, and then it's like later in the show, oh, it's all gonna go down. And it's hard to get excited or interested in any way about any of this, because it really doesn't feel like it's gonna happen this season. Like more stuff will happen, obviously, because there's more episodes, but it doesn't feel like there is these characters that are on horses, like coming from another dimension, or they're ghosts or something. I don't know, it's pretty vague. I'm sure if you've read the books or the games or whatever, you're like, I know who they are. You're an idiot. Yes, I am. I also haven't read the books or the games or whatever, so I just don't know who they are. And it's hard to care because they feel like they'll be season 4, 5, 6 kind of characters, and I won't be watching. Like, I'm going to watch the first episode of season 4 out of morbid curiosity, but I will not watch any more. Liam Hemsworth, I don't hate him, but I do not think he's the right choice. So all this kind of like hype and rumors and, you know, things being like, oh, there's some evil brewing in the land. Shut up, who cares? Like, I just want to see Henry Cavill fight some monsters. I guess the best kind of review I can do for this season is to say, will I watch the end of the season? Will I come back in a month's time and watch the final 3 episodes of season 3? Of course I will, but is that any indication of the quality of the show? No, absolutely not. I've just come so far and there's like 3 to go. I've got 3 hours to spend. I'll probably play a little bit of Clash Royale on my phone as I watch, and then something important will happen. I'm like, I missed it. And I'll have to go back a little bit and like, yeah, it's like one of those shows where like you get up to get your food from the kitchen and you don't pause it. It's become that show.